Head over to miniaturemarket.com where they have thousands of board games at discounted prices, and you can sign up for product alerts. Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. It's that time of year where the Spiel Des Jahres nominees come out. In fact, they were just announced today, and each year I try to come out with a video that day of what the nominees were, tell you a little bit about those games, and then also give you my predictions and some commentary about that. So today we're going to do that for the Spiel des Jahres, which essentially is like Game of the Year in Germany, but also the Spiel des Jahres, the Kennerspiel, which is more of the connoisseurs or gamer games that has a little bit more going on than say the entry-level Spiel des Jahres sort of family weight game. So first I'm going to start with the Spiel des Jahres and then go to the Kennerspiel. Often it seems like the Spiel des Jahres tends to have one well-known game that many people know about, if not all the people watching this video. And then there tends to be like one sort of diamond in the rough that some people know about, but it is available usually everywhere. And then there's always one that's like not out in North America, there's small print runs, and it's like no one's heard of this game before. It just tends to happen sometimes like this, and this year I feel like it falls right into that. So let's go over the Spiel des Jahres nominees. Let me start with that number one, the well-known one, which if you're watching this video, you probably know this game. The first one is Cascadia. This is from AEG. Let me give you a 1-minute overview of how this one plays. Cascadia is a tile drafting and placement game for 1 to 4 players where you're going to be drafting pairs of tiles and animal tokens, and at the end scoring differently for each of them. For example, grabbing this pair, placing the elk where the elk belongs on one of these, and placing this tile on my board. Noticing, hey, I've got a pair of bears here. Because each pair of bear that's not surrounded by any other bears is going to get me points depending on the amount of pairs I have, and each animal scores in a different fashion, and each animal has multiple cards that you can use in different games for huge replayability. When placing an animal, you might place on a pine cone, getting you one of these, allowing you to spend it to take a token and a different paired tile, which can really help when building up your animals for scoring and hey, getting possibly even another pine cone. And at the end, which will be a lot bigger than this, you get points for not only all the animals, but also whoever has the largest, or sometimes second largest, habitat by the number of tiles. So you're also trying to pay attention to how and where you lay the tiles. And there's also a family variant or intermediate variant to have all the animals score the same way and a much easier way for smaller children. All right, well there's Cascadia. Now this game made 2 of my year-end videos last year. It made my top 10 family games of the year, and it also made my top 10 games of the year because it's that good. This game is so smooth, it's so elegant. To me, it's exactly what the stereotypical Spiel des Jahres winner has. It has ease of play, it has ease to get into it, but yet has depth. It it's an amazingly feeling game, and it's relaxing, but yet tense at the same time. It's beautiful, it's gorgeous. You could teach this pretty much to anyone. This is exactly the style of game you would expect to be on this list. I'm glad it's here. More about this later. But the next one that I'm going to talk about is Scout. Now, Scout itself, it actually came out previously in the past, but it got reprinted, and now probably it's available in Germany, which is why it's on the list this year. Now, Scout itself is a card game. And I do have this one, and I have played it. And in this game, you are basically, it's like a card shedding game where you're trying to go out. You're trying to run out of cards. Now you get these cards and they're dealt to you, and you cannot change the order in which they're dealt. And the big twist here is that. And the second twist is the cards are sort of like double-sided, meaning like the tops and bottoms are different, and you can flip them around in your hand at different parts of the game, and you can use a different number of that. And so you have like a card that has 2 different numbers on it, and you're gonna be playing this card as like sets, like pairs and runs and things like that, but you gotta beat the one that's played before you. But if you can't or you don't want to, you can quote unquote scout and take a card from the set that's out there. It has to be one of the ones on the end, but you get to pick which orientation, which number of the 2 numbers on that card you want, and you get to play it in your hand any way you want. Because the other big twist in this game is when you're playing cards, they have to be next to each other. So you might have like a 5 and then like a 2 and then like a 6, 7, 8, and you're like, oh, if I can get rid of that 2, then I can, get rid of the 2 and then I can bring those cards together. So playing things in a way to kind of get things together is the name of this game. Now this game's interesting. It's based off of, or I should say it's clearly inspired by an older game called Crass Carrier. That was the German name. Recently it came out in North America called Delt. Quite honestly, I like Delt better than Scout. Scout, I enjoy it, but it didn't like knock my socks off, and it didn't make me want to come back for more and more for a couple reasons. One is you're playing sort of like one long trick slash hand where like players are adding stuff and then they're taking stuff away to Scout and they're adding, and you keep going around this like one standard thing. Where Crash Carry, it's like one trick, clear it, one trick, clear it. And I felt that to be way more engaging than just playing this constant carousel thing. It's just me. They are similar, they are different too, but this was clearly inspired by that. I like Delt better. Also, this game, I think, this version of this game, Scout, was plagued by two main things. Number one, well, it says it's played 2 to 5 players. 2-player game is awful. Don't even bother playing it. It shouldn't even be in the rules. It's lame. 3 to 5 players, you play 1 round per player, and when you go to round 5, it's just too long. Play it less rounds. It overstays its welcome. But the biggest problem is this is a card game. Oink Games is known for coming out with those ones that have tiny little boxes. That's great. I like that concept. But in this game, it comes with a box full of tokens that are unnecessary. They're just scoring tokens. You could just write your score down on the end of the paper. And because they had so many tokens, they had to use very cheap, flimsy cards. This is a card game. It's not like you're putting them out on a tableau. You're playing with them. You're shuffling them. These cards are like worse. Yes, I think they, if I remember right, they actually are linen finish. But if you have a thin card, linen finish stamps it down, makes it feel even thinner. So the components in this game was a big miss for me. Shouldn't have had the tokens in there, no need. You should have put the money in the better cards for a game. These cards bend so easily, it's almost useless. Anyway, Scout, decent game, not as good as what the predecessor was, and the components are very big mixed bag here. Some of the things are cool, but most of them, big thumbs down on the components of Scout. And that leads us to the last one of the nominee list. It's called Top 10. Very generic looking, very generic sounding. There's no English version available, so most of the people, at least in North America, probably have not heard of this. I had not heard of this. As I mentioned at the beginning, there always tends to be one game that nobody's heard of in this nominee list. This is a cooperative party game. It actually sounds pretty darn fun, where like a phrase will come out, like Batman wants to replace Robin to fight the bad guys. And then you're gonna create a new duo, Batman and blank. And each player gets, other than one, gets cards labeled 1 through 10. If you have 10, you want to come up with like the best answer for that. If you have a 1, you want to come up with the worst answer for that. 5, you want to come in the medium. So what happens is everyone comes up with an answer, and then they reveal those, and the round sort of guesser has to pick which, what is that? Are they the first? Are they second? Which one's the worst? Which one's the second worst? Which one's the medium? Which one's the best? Each time they're wrong, they flip over a token. Essentially, it has to do with unicorns and unicorn poos. And so you're flipping them over when you get them wrong. You're trying to survive 5 rounds, because if all the unicorns have left by the end of the 5th round, leaving you with nothing but poop, then you lose. Scoring sounds kind of funny. But the actual aspect of this, I mean, this is a pretty generic sounding party game, but I also could see where this actually could be a lot of fun, where you're arguing about, what do you mean? This is the worst idea. No, that's actually a pretty good idea, and vice versa. I could see this one actually being pretty fun. Now, with all that being said, let's get into some of the commentary. So I wonder, is this top 10 game, is this the llama of SDJ? Is this like a few years ago, Llama made the list? It was a Reiner Knizia game. He tends to get on this list quite a bit. He's one of my favorite designers. The game was basically Uno, a little bit different. I mean, it was super light, it raised eyebrows. I couldn't figure out for the life of me how it made that list. And if it had won, people would have gone berserk, I think. Here is like, is top 10 the llama of this year's SDJ? I don't know. It's a good thing to think about. Also, if it wins, will it be the quote-unquote pictures of the Spiel des Jahres? Pictures won last year. It was a game that I haven't seen anybody talk about since, and we probably won't in the future. Would this be the same thing of that? 2020, pictures beat out Nova Luna with Uwe Rosenberg, and it beat out My City, a Reiner Knizia game. Flabbergasted that pictures beat both of those games out. Never in my wildest dreams would I have picked that. And it did. So if top 10 wins, is that a bigger upset than those two? As big of an upset as bigging out 2 heavyweights of Uwe Rosenberg and Reiner Knizia? If this game, if top 10 beats out Cascadia, oh my word, it might even be a bigger upset than what we just had last year. But speaking of that, Cascadia, I mean, it's an easy pick, right? It's the safe pick. I am going to say that this might be the biggest landslide victory in the history of the Spiel des Jahres. Cascadia is one of only 3 games that came out last year that are now currently in the Board Game Geek's top 100 list. I think it's at like 78 right now. Another one was The Crew, the Mission Deep Sea. But you know, The Crew it's amazing. But it also piggybacked off of the original Crew, which is also amazing, also in the top 100. There's only one other game that's in the top 100 that I'll mention later. The one other game that almost made it there was Sleeping Gods. If you're in the top 100 Board Game Geek, not even being out a full year, that says a lot of people love this game. And I realize that the Spiel Des Jahres is not catering to Board Game Geek or the people that are on there. They're catering towards families, people that go into grocery stores in Germany, and they're going to buy a game. Which I thought was odd that you just go to a grocer and buy games in Germany, but that's what you do. That's awesome. I wish we had more of that here. So I'm just wondering, is this going to be, I'm calling it obviously, this is the easiest pick to make. Not saying I'm going to be right, but I'm just saying it's going to be the winner, and I think it's going to be the biggest landslide victory in the history of the Spiel des Jahres. I would love to know if the Spiel des Jahres keeps their vote totals. I would love to see them make them public. That would be amazing, where people could really come back and be like, what? Oh my gosh, it was so close. This was the closest race ever. This was the biggest defeat ever. It would be fun to talk about, especially from the media standpoint, to do that. So SGJ, if you're listening, I'd love to see you publish how much each game won by in percentages, or you can even we don't need to know your internal processes, but on some sort of factor, how big was the victory margin in different years? I think this is going to be the biggest one. Last year, 2021, Micro Macro, that was a hands down for me too. I thought for sure that was going to win. It was clearly amazing. And it beat out Adventures of Robin Hood and Zombie Teams. That also might have been a huge victory. In 2018, Azul beat out, everyone's going to think, well, no, that can't be the biggest win ever. Azul must have been the biggest, easiest win ever. I don't think so, because Azul beat out The Mind, which at the time was the most different, clever Spiel des Jahres bait game ever, if there's ever such a thing. Luxor was good too, but The Mind was so different that I don't think Azul was as such a hands down as some people thought. Codenames, everyone's like, oh, Codenames must have been a huge smash, landslide victory in 2016. Well, it beat out Emotep, which, good game, but it beat out Karuba, which I thought was even better. Karuba's it's a Rudigador, such a amazingly, perfectly designed, again, SDJ type of game that even though Codenames was amazing, I'm not sure the victory was that large compared to what this could be this year. Everyone thinks Dominion. Dominion must have smashed it. Dominion beat Finca and Pandemic. I bet you it didn't win by too much. Ticket to Ride, 2004. It beat out Ingenious, which would have won it any other year if it didn't go against Ticket to Ride. Carcassonne, 2001. It beat out Das Amulet and Zerop, which I've never played either of those two. But is that it? 1999. Tikal beat out Union Pacific. Another great game from Alan R. Moon. So this, if Cascadia wins, and I think it's going to, I think this might end up going down as the biggest landslide victory in Spiel des Jahres history. Or will this be 2014 of Spiel des Jahres, where everyone, including me, was saying, this is the biggest history, this is hands down, Splendor is gonna beat Camel Up. Nope. Camel Up beat Splendor, shocked the world, had us scratching heads going, what the heck? How did Camel Up beat Splendor? It is a special game. I do love Camel Up as well. But that was a year where I would have been sitting here this same time, and I did back then, and say, Splendor hands down is going to win this. This is the biggest no-brainer ever. So is this going to be 2014 all the way over again? If Top 10 beats Cascadia, wow, or even Scout, for example. We'll just have to wait and see, but that's how I feel about the SDJ. Now on to the Kennerspiel, which is sort of the connoisseur's game. First on the list here is Cryptid. Let me give you a 1-minute overview of how this works. Cryptid is a 3 to 5 player deduction game published by Osprey Games, where all players are cryptozoologists trying to be the first to discover definitive proof of a cryptid creature in the wilds of North America, like this one. You'll be trying to deduce which one of these locations is where the cryptid is, and you'll win the game. Each player gets their own secret clue book, and every game they get a specific secret clue number, which tells them what their secret clue is. So that player secretly knows that the cryptid could be in any spot that is within one space of any of these swamp spaces. But all the other players get their secret clues as well, and you're trying to find what are all these secret clues, because once you know them all, you can find the cryptid and win. And you learn information by questioning a player of your choice of a specific area. And no answers, symbolized by cubes, lets everyone in on information. And everyone knows one of the possible clues you're trying to rule out to figure out what everyone's secret clues are. You're trying to rule out information as fast as possible, but you have to be careful because every no answer you get forces you to place a no answer somewhere else on the board, giving up information to everyone else. But if you think you know where the cryptid is, you can try to win by searching in a location, and if no one else is able to disprove it, well, then you've won. But be careful, because if at least one player can disprove it, you've just given out a lot of information about your secret clue. The game has over 50 replayable setups and solutions in both beginner and advanced formats. If you know me and my channel, if you've been here a while, you know that I love deduction games. Cryptid was my game of the year it came out, and up until recent years was my favorite. At the time, Cryptid passed Sleuth, a Sid Saxon masterpiece back from I think 1973, as my favorite deduction game. Since then, Search for Planet X has taken that, but I love Cryptid. It was my game of the year. That's how highly I think about Cryptid. So let's go to the next one and we'll talk about how I slot these. Dune Imperium. Here's a 1-minute overview of how that plays. Dune Imperium is a deck building and worker placement game where you're trying to get at least 10 points and have the most points when one player does so. You'll be playing cards from your deck that will allow you to go to different spots on the board, and when you go there, you'll be moving up influence in those specific factions, and if you get high enough, you'll gain points, and if you get high enough even more, you'll get this token which gives you a point, but this can be stolen if somebody else goes past you. These multi-use cards, you'll decide to use them to send workers out, possibly use some abilities, or you'll have to decide to use them for other things like currency to buy other cards. And these cards you'll be able to buy with that currency in order to build your deck and give yourself different strategies. But at the end of the round, there's combat, and if you have the most strength, you'll be getting the best of rewards, like moving up a faction to influence, possibly getting you points. Or maybe if you come in first, you'll just get 2 straight points. You only need 10 to win. But there's also intrigue cards that if you play at the right time can add strength to allow you to win the conflicts. So to win, you're managing your cards in your deck to see where you can send your agents, to get different resources, to do things with those resources, to buy new cards, to build an engine, and of course to win conflicts. Yeah, this one is super, super popular. It came out around the same time as Lost Ruins of Arnak, which was on last year's list. And I think most people from the list that's here are going to pick Dune Imperium to win. Great area control game, very tight resources and such. So now the last one is one that I have not played, Living Forest. Now, Living Forest is a beautiful looking game that has a main mechanism similar to, say, Mystic Veil, where you're going to be flipping over cards in your deck, and you're going to be pushing your luck, because if you press it too far, you'll get less actions that turn if a certain amount of symbols come up. But you're going to be using that, and then once you're there, you're going to be taking actions that are on that card, you're going to be moving around a rondelle and taking actions there, you're going to be gathering new cards to add to your deck that will give you new actions, maybe possible some of those different symbols to either help you or hurt you when you're pushing your luck. You've got trees that you're building of your own, and these are going to give you bonuses as well, and if you're trying to fill rows and columns. So it's like tableau building, a little spatial aspect, rondelles, deck building, push your luck, that type of thing in Living Forest. Now again, I haven't played Living Forest, so this is a tough one because I know a lot of people really like this game. So for me, and most people I think here, again, hands down, I'm going to pick Dune Imperium. It's very critically acclaimed. A lot of people love this game. For me, my favorite is Cryptid. If I were to bet, if I was a betting person, which I'm not, I would bet Dune Imperium is going to win this hands down. If I'm not, I'm going to say, for me, my heart is with Cryptid because I just love that game, and the more notoriety it gets, the better it is. Now, interestingly enough, the biggest conversation here is probably going to be for the ones that aren't on this list that were on their recommended list, because for both lists, they come up with a set of recommended games. The elephant in the room here, pun intended, is Ark Nova. This game has shot up the Board Game Geek rankings faster than I think any other game ever has in the past. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong there, but it seems like before it was even out in anywhere else other than Germany on Essen, it was already in the top 100. And now that it's been out for like just 1 month here in North America, it's already at number 14 on Board Game Geek at the time of recording this video. That's ridiculous. That's crazy. I have played Ark Nova. I enjoy it. It's like you're building your own zoo, and you know you're getting university ties, and you're doing research, and it's all about comboing together cards. It feels sort of Terraforming Mars-esque, but different at the same time. But the theme's awesome. The cards are beautiful. I really like this game. I'm still not sure it deserves how fast it's moving. Oh my gosh, it's crazy. I mean, does any game deserve to move up that fast? It's definitely a little long for me. I think the game could be even more fun if it was a little shorter, but I get it. People love it. I like it. I haven't met a person that doesn't like it. I wish there was a little more interaction with players and such. It is a little more, it is a little solitary-ish, but hey, it's a great game, and I think it definitely worthy of being on the recommended list for sure, if not the real list. Korra, let me give you a 1-minute overview of how this plays. In Korra, Rise of an Empire, 2 to 4 players are the heads of different blossoming city-states in ancient Greece. You're trying to have the most points at the end of the 9th round, and there are many strategies that facilitate you gaining points. Over the course of the game, you'll be advancing your city-state's economy, culture, and military on your own board, and these tracks will not only give you bonuses at certain levels, but will also help other actions you take become more powerful. You'll also be advancing on the main board with citizens that help you take more powerful actions while mitigating your dice, with taxes giving you more currency each round, glory, which will be a point multiplier at the end of the game, and troops, which will help you explore to gain knowledge tokens. These tokens will help you develop your own city, which gives you asymmetric abilities or endgame points as you unlock them. Yeah, Korra is definitely more for those that like sort of the dry Euro style games. But the last one is my favorite of this list, Witchstone, a Reiner Knizia game from our games. Let me show you 1 minute of how this game works. Witchstone is a strategy game for 2 to 4 players where each player will have their own cauldron and they'll be placing hex tiles to do actions and different powers of them depending on how many of the same symbol you can link together. Now in the big cauldron on the board, you're going to be building networks of energy which are going to score you points as you complete them, but also allowing you to bring witches in and moving them around and putting them in different locations, gaining you different actions and endgame points. But you're also doing that to try to fulfill prophecies and endgame goal cards, like having your witches in certain locations, or having networks to certain locations, or even the amount of witches on the board, getting you a certain amount of points. More and more, the better you do that prophecy. You might also be using wand actions to fly down a track and getting actions and even better versions of them if you're the first one there. Or moving around the pentagram, not only gaining actions that you can use one time for good power, or using them on your board for multiple uses, or getting the best points as you pass different spots. And whoever does the best job puzzling out their cauldron, getting the prophecies and fulfilling those and getting points throughout the game for the end game goals is gonna be the winner. Yeah, out of the three ones that are in the nominee for Kennerspiel, again, one of those I haven't played, but in the 3 here, again, Cryptid was my game of the year. That's my favorite out of all 6 of these games, or 5 that I've played. And Witchstone is actually my second favorite. It's amazing. It uses that mechanism that Reiner Knizia came up with Ingenious, and then turned that in a way to do an action selection mechanism. And the game feels like a Stefan Feld game, not a Reiner Knizia game. So picture like you're playing Ingenious, powering up your actions to go off and do all these different point salad things. It's awesome. I would have loved to have seen Witchstone on this list for sure. Still would be picking Cryptid for my heart. I still am gonna pick Dune Imperium for the Kennerspiel winner. But definitely check out Witchstone if you have not. Well, I hope this has been helpful. Which games, let me know in the comments, do you think should have been on the Spiel des Jahres list that did not get on there? And other than the ones that were here on the recommended list, which ones did you think should have made the Kennerspiel list? Let me know. It's been the Game Boy Geek, breaking down barriers, growing relationships through board games, by helping you find the next one you'll love. Game Toppers not only transforms your existing table to a high-quality gaming solution, they now offer full leg kits and dining cover solutions for the full table application. Paired with their amazing, thematic, premium stitch edge mats from noted board game artists like Vincent Dutray, collapsible cup holders, and really cool accessories, it's a complete system that upgrades every game you play. Go to GameToppersLLC.com or click the link below to check out their current Game Topper 3.5 Kickstarter campaign.